Mike, good evening, and thank you very much for your time once again on Rock 98.7 FM.
Good evening, Quicker. Hello to all the listeners, Rock FM listeners. Nice to be on air.
Wonderful. So let's go back a bit. The Euros, how well has it been like for the Three Lions? Since the Three Lions exited from the Euros, you've not been able to speak on it. How was the feel like? How was the tension like? And has the tension really gone down as of now?
Yeah, I mean, the Euros, it's been a great competition. With regards to the Three Lions, England, I did say a couple of weeks ago, expectations high, but expectations high, but delivery maybe will not make it. And actually that prophecy came out. An inexperienced side, and on the night they froze. The country was devastated. But saying that, well done, Iceland. A fantastic result for Iceland. They had a game plan, they stuck to their game plan, they frustrated England, and the Icelanders froze the English team out of that game. And tactically, Iceland were very astute, and I think that the fact is that the team was so inexperienced that they couldn't cope with that type of pressure, and Iceland went through. Of course, the reaction in England was devastating. Everyone was expecting a win. It didn't happen. And again, we've been let down. 1966 was the last time we won anything, and it looks like England are going to have to wait for a few more years. Regards to the coaching staff, they got it all wrong. Roy Hodgson and his regime, Ray Lewington, Gary Neville, very disappointing. The defence in that game against Iceland was all over the place, which is very surprising when you have two former defenders like Lewington and Gary Neville trying to coach them defence. So the whole thing was disappointing. Hodgson resigned, but never apologised to the nation for the poor performance. It was a disaster, and the team came back with their tails between their legs. Very disappointing, Quacker.
Oh, okay. There was a rumor which I think Neville came out yesterday to debunk through Sky Sport that he has no problem with Roy Hodgson. According to your information, do you think he had any issues with Roy Hodgson?
Well, we've heard that there was some discontent in the camp. And Gary Neville, although a great international player, his coaching skills, you have to put a bit. He went to Valencia, and Valencia, were on the verge of being relegated. Roy Hodgson appointed him in the England team on the basis of being a good football pundit on Sky. But Gary Neville, as a coach, I'm not sure whether he's got the coaching capability. A great player, don't get me wrong, one of the best fullbacks England have ever had. But as a coach, you have to question it. And, Gary is a strong person, and he likes to speak his own mind. And we don't know the full story yet, Kweku, but there was unrest in the camp. The full story has not come out yet.
Do you think the Three Lions disrespected the Icelanders? That is why they fell short of they qualify ahead of them. Do you think that they belittled them, the abilities of the Icelanders? That's really what happened to them?
Well, I think the stories I've heard is that when England drew Iceland, Gary Neville was one of the people who, when he heard the result, he was laughing to himself. We've got Iceland because up to the last minute we were due to play Portugal, if you remember, and there was one or two late goals in the games, which meant instead of England facing Portugal, they were now playing Iceland, and of course a lot of people in England thought Iceland, 400,000 people against England, we're in the quarterfinals. But actually that didn't happen. Iceland, and congratulations to them. They played ever so well, and they deserved to win. Tactically, the Icelandic coach got everything right, and the England coach has got everything wrong, I'm afraid. And when you think of the players they let out, Walcott, Drinkwater, a little bit more experience in that team. You had young boys, 20, 21, 22, not really knowing how to break down a very, very difficult Icelandic defence. And Joe Hart, who's throughout the competition has been a little bit dubious in terms of his goalkeeping. He also made a terrible error again. So, it was a difficult one to take. The English nation were absolutely distraught when I could hear the whole country go quiet.
Wow. Has really retired from the national team yet?
No, he's not retired, and he will continue. At the moment, we're looking for a new coach, and I hope they don't go down the route of getting former English players involved, because there's talk of that at the moment. And I think, just because you've been a great international player, it doesn't make you automatically a great international coach or even a great coach. So I hope that England take their time in appointing a new coach. And clearly, there is potential there with some of the players they've got. The players are very young. For some of them, they were thrown in at the deep end on the international stage. But there is potential there. There are some good players. There was a lot of positives you can take out of it, but there was also a lot of negatives as well. And I think the new coach has got to be able to nurture and develop this squad of players, maybe release some of them and maybe add new players into that squad. But again, Kweku, it's the same old story. High expectations and the whole nation being let down. We're so used to it here, People don't get upset anymore. We're so used to it.
Okay. So going for a new coach, the choice of a new coach, is it going to be a foreigner or is going to be an English person? People are of the view that most of the English coaches are not turning into pundits. Most of the old players are all on TV, on radio, every time trying to talk about sports, and they think they know everything. And the media has also put a lot of pressure on the players of the Three Lions, and you overhype the players and thinking they are the best, but they have not gone anyway.
Absolutely. You have the accusation, overrated, overpaid, and poor performance. These have been the three things that have come out of this competition. I suppose you could argue it's true. But the press, the press in England and the media in England, they like to build you up, and then when they build you up, they like to destroy you. That's how our media and press are based here. And they would take great pleasure in some cases, when England failed. Of course, Roy Hodgson fell on his own sword. It was a disappointing end for him, and I don't think he did himself any favours at the end. When he came on after the game and he said he was going to resign. I thought that the fans and the nation was after some sort of an apology from him, but it never came, and they were paying him £3.5 million a year. £3.5 million a year. Can you imagine that was his contract?
That's amazing.
And the least we wanted was some sort of an apology, some sort of to say, we've let the country down, we're all disappointed, but no, he never came up with that. He just resigned and said, I shouldn't be here really, I've resigned now, it's nothing more to do with me, which we were all a bit disappointed about.
Wow. Okay, so away from the English and their stuff, how do you see the Heroes? Who do you tip to go to the final? Has Wales really surprised you with their astonishing performance in these Heroes? Can they stop the Portuguese team? Cristiano Ronaldo has not gotten the baton yet. We will have the flashes of his experience and his skills and everything in this very tournament. Germany and Italy was amazing penalty, poor penalty. The first five, the rest was super. Which country do you see progressing to the final? France really showed where Iceland really belongs. They demolished the Icelandic team very well. Who do you see in the final?
Well, we've got Portugal and Wales coming up Wednesday night. It's going to be an exciting game. They're two teams that, have surprised. And I think Portugal, as the competition has gone on, they didn't finish too high up in the group stage. But Portugal are a side that can grind out results. Excellent at penalty taking, and they're grinding out results. They have the likes of Ronaldo, Nani, Quaresma, and the big surprise for Portugal has been Renato Sanchez, the 18-year-old boy who's really made his mark in the tournament, signed for Bayern Munich for 27.5 million recently, and he's really come on to and at the back you've got Pepe, who's had a great competition. So Portugal are very strong. On the other side of the coin, you've got Gareth Bale, and it's going to be Bale and Ronaldo, I think. Although they're not admitting it, it's a tale of two players. Both of the talisman for Ronaldo for Portugal and Bale for Wales. Bale's already got 3 goals, Ronaldo's got 2 goals, and you've got another informed striker, Robson Kanu, who has just been released by Reading in the Championship looking for a club. He's had lots of offers since the competition. Sam Vokes, who also got a goal against in the last game when they beat Belgium. Unfortunately, Wales have got to be missing Ramsey, who's going to be a big miss. He's out with 2 yellow cards, and also Ben Davies is out. So So they're going to be missing 2 key players. On the night, I think it's going to be a close game. I can see this going to extra time, Kweku. I can see it going to extra time, and I can even see it going to penalties. But on the night, although I'm wanting Wales to win because it's part of the UK, it's part of Britain, I think Portugal might just have the edge.
Wow. So you're expecting to see Portugal and who in the final?
Well, Germany and France. What a game that's going to be in Marseille on Thursday night. Germany, never get to penalties with Germany because they're always going to beat you on penalties, no matter who it is. For some reason, Germany, they don't miss penalties. France, on their own soil, there'll be thousands of people cheering France on. Giroud already has 3 goals. Payet has 3 goals. Paul Pogba is probably the man of the tournament. And you've got Griezmann looking on great form. And at the back, Rami and Koscielny, they're doing ever so well. But look at the Germany team. Jerome Boateng, for me, has been one of the most outstanding players on the competition. I know he gave a penalty away in the last game, but he's had a great tournament as a sweeper for Germany. And then, you've got Muller, who's playing well, Ozil, who scored in the last game. You've got Draxler on the wing, and Toni Kroos has had a fantastic tournament. Mm-hmm. Schweinsteiger is doubtful, Khedira's out, and Gomez is out. So they're down 2 or 3 players. France, last beat Germany in 1958 in the World Cup final. 1958. That's 58 years ago, isn't it? Exactly. So, who will win? Well, everybody will think France will win, but I think, and I'm going to stick with my original prediction, Kweku, this may go to extra time, it may go to penalties, but I think Germany will see it through.
All right. Finally, before you take leave of us, Britain has exited from Europe, from the European Union, I might say.
Yeah.
How does that affect soccer? Will Britain refuse to participate in the UEFA Champions League, the European Championship? How does players getting to Britain to apply their trade there as soccer players? What will be the format? What would they go through before?
Yeah. Well, we had this big referendum. It was very exciting, and 52% of our population voted leave, and 48% voted stay. So it was very much a split decision. But something like nearly 2 million people more voted leave. So the government will be pushing that forward. We have to raise what's called Article 50, which will give. It's like a notice period where you put in Article 50, which says you want to leave the EU, but negotiations could take up to 2 years before we actually formally leave the European Union. Will it affect football? Will it affect English Premier League? Probably no. The English Premier League is a very successful business. They're a very wealthy business. They don't rely on European funding or European Union for anything. They're a self-managed, standalone business and very profitable. So it's not really going to affect. We're still part of Europe, although we're not part of the EU, and countries like Iceland and Switzerland, European countries, but they're not in the EU. So, we're still part of Europe, but we've come out of the EU because we want to govern our country a little bit more closely ourselves. So really, in terms of players coming into the English Premier League, there's not going to be any problem with that because, each club can make a case and bring in a special international from anywhere in the world, taking into account the legislation and the rules that the EPL have on the numbers of players you can have. So Brexit will not affect EPL or football in any way.
All right. We are grateful as always. We hope to talk to you again right after the semi-final game, ahead of the final, hopefully next week Sunday, ahead of it. we will talk again. We'll talk again. Analyze the final of the Euros, and also after the Euros, I hope to talk to you again about the APL when it kickstarts. What's going on with Man United and also some of the teams in the big teams in the APL. Yeah. Wishing you all the best.
Mourinho's going to make his first press debut tomorrow, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Manchester United press. It's going to be broadcast tomorrow, and the new Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola made his inauguration speech yesterday in front of about 3,000-4,000 people, both here in Manchester where I'm living. So it's an exciting time for two Manchester teams next year.
All right, so who is in for Man United? Quickly, who is in for Man United as we speak now? I hear Matuidi is coming to England. Is he joining Man United? I hear Abramovich is seen. Is it true? It's still a speculation.
Yeah, Ivanovic has already signed. He's coming. I didn't quite catch the other player. Who was that?
Matuidi. Bless Matuidi.
Yeah. There's talk that he's going to be joining Man United, and I think they're looking at maybe 2 or 3 other players as well to come into the squad.
Wow. So if Matuidi is coming, it means Mata is leaving, right?
Possibly.
Wow.
I still think that they're starting back training next week because, of course, the first game's coming up on the 6th of August, so they'll be starting training next week. We do expect to see more comings and goings over the next 1 or 2 weeks. It might be that some of the players go and you see some new faces coming in, and it could be that, of course, when Mourinho and Guardiola take over, they give it a month or 2 to see how the existing players are playing. But there's going to be changes.
We are hard pressed for time. Let's leave it here. We'll talk again. Thank you very much as always.
Great news. All right. All the very best, and to all the listeners, have a great evening and enjoy the semi-finals if you've got the opportunity to watch them.
All right.
All the very best.